5 months ago, at the start of the year, I spoke about some of the Hoyas that I was really struggling with. And I finally, after a long period of time, started to do some work to sort of rehab them, do my best to save them. And in today's video, I'm going to be talking about these plants, see if my propagation methods worked, if I was able to save any of them, talk about some of the ones that I've really struggled with, and also share some highlights. What is up, guys? My name is Lithius and welcome to Roots Ready. I think last winter was probably the hardest it has ever been on any of my Hoya. Usually my Hoyas tend to be okay. I don't tend to worry about them too much, mostly because I have a lot of them under a grow light. They're all doing their thing, never have any issues with root rot or pests, anything like that. So usually I tend not to worry about them too much and just do what I do, thinking that they're going to be okay. Last winter though, I came into the hard realization that no, I need to start thinking about how I approach my plants and change up the care that I provide to them during the winter. I almost lost some of the plants that I had in my collection for the longest. I did my best to rehab them. I went through and propagated some that weren't doing that well. I had some in a prop box. I had some that I put into soil, put it into my grow tent. So let's talk about it. First off, we're going to look at the plants that are growing in this prop box. I don't know if you remember, I made a soil mix. I think there was sand and cocoa coir in there, lots of other bits. I think I put a bit of a semi-hydro mix as well, just to get that good drainage. And I stuck a lid on this and I placed it in front of an east facing window. I haven't done much with this in that time. I've probably watered it maybe 2 or 3 times because the lid tends to keep in quite a lot of the humidity. You can kind of see that on the top, that there's a lot of moisture. So I tend to be quite careful with the amount of water that I give these plants. But let's open it and see what's inside. The first thing you will notice is that yes, we have some growth. The majority of the cuttings that were in here were from my Hoya CV Jennifer, because that one got hit really hard. The leaves started to yellow. They started to look really sickly. So I decided to prop up the entire plant, throw away the bottom cutting. As you can see, we've only really lost just one plant. So this is a stem from one of the Hoya, but the rest of them are either still here or they've actually started to grow. So you can see we have quite a number of new leaves. We have this one over here. We have a little baby one back here, which is growing in quite nicely. It's very small and cute. We have this leaf, which is a new one, this one as well. So looking at this, I think every plant, I believe even this leaf here is new as well. So I believe every single plant that was in here of the Hoya CV Jennifer, apart from one, has grown successfully. I don't know if you recall, but stuck some Hoya Velosa cuttings in here also. We've got 3 Velosa cuttings in here. We have one over here. We have another larger leaf hiding away in this corner. This is another one. And then we have another little one back here. So this over here is another Hoya Velosa. These ones tend to have done the leaves. I can see that they have some sort of growth on them, but no new leaves. It looks like we've got a stem kind of trying to emerge out of each one, but apart from that, there's nothing really to write home about. However, the CV Jennifer are doing really well. I think it's almost time that I have to take them out of this pot because they're starting to hit the roof and they're getting exposed to a lot of humidity, a lot of that wet condensation on the top of the lid that's getting in the leaves as well. And I don't want that to sit there for too long because that can cause some damage to the leaf. So I think eventually, maybe at some point this week, I'm going to try to take these plants out of this substrate and yeah, try to get them growing. So we'll see what happens. So this is the Hoya CV Jennifer doing really well in this propagation box. You may recall that we had one CV Jennifer that we weren't able to get into the box because it was a little bit awkward in shape. So we put it into a pot and we placed it right into this grow tent behind me. I had to tie it down because it was a bit unruly and it kept sort of falling out. For a long time, I didn't think this plant was doing anything, although I had seen that it started to root out at the bottom. We've got one little root there, which was a really good sign. We had no sign of any new growth on this plant until I decided to make this video today. When I was taking the plant out of the grow tent behind me, I noticed that we have a tiny little shoot just here where my finger is. So that is actually got a new leaf on it as well, so I won't touch it. These leaves tend to be very delicate at this stage, so I won't touch it because they might just fall off and it might take the plant a little bit of time before it produces another leaf. So I'm going to leave it alone. The care for this one has been very different to the others. Whereas the others in the prop box have been exposed to a lot of humidity, this one on the other hand has just been in here. It dries out. I treat it like a normal plant and you can see the effect that this has had. Definitely slightly slower growth, good rootage, good root system, but slower leaf growth. So that's something to think about if you're ever thinking about propagating your Hoya. But in total, I think the CV Jennifer are doing really, really well and off to a great start. I had a little pot of water with some cuttings in there that I was trying to establish and grow root systems. And I think at the time that I repotted them, most of them were doing well. They had a good-ish root system. One of the cuttings was this one. This is a Hoya Velosa. I actually had two of these and I've sold one on my eBay storefront just last week, and I've got this other one and it's actually growing so well, so nicely. Look at these new leaves just coming in. Both of them were sort of at the same stage. The other one had a slightly longer tendril, but again, it was similar to this where it had two leaves that were emerging. I think they were slightly smaller as well. But these have done really, really well. I think the Velosa, in my experience, have been very reliable in terms of propagation. I haven't had any fail, to be fair. They root up very, very easily. These plants, when they start to grow, they actually grow quite quickly, quite rapidly. So a very good choice for propagation if that's something that you want to do and grow your Hoya collection. But the Velosa is always just such a special plant, just really, really gorgeous, really, really pretty. And yeah, another success in terms of propagation. In that same pot of water, I also had my Hoya Sonya in there as well. I remember that I took quite a few cuttings from the main plant because just like the CV Jennifer, it started to show signs of decline, and I chopped loads and loads off, had them in water. They were rooted very, very well. If I remember correctly, they were better rooted in the water, which gave me a lot of confidence to put them into soil and to place them under a grow light to take it out of the grow tent completely. Of all propagations that we've done, I would say maybe the Hoya Sonya has been the least successful. So this is the pot. We had quite a few plants in there and I've potted them all up into this pot over here. And for the most part, I don't think they're doing that great. We've lost quite a few leaves, maybe about 4 or 5 leaves. And then we have a lot of browning and dry edges along the base of the leaf. So these are all of the ones that were transferred from water. Maybe it's because of the transition, the shock, that the older leaves are falling off. And it's only very, very recently that this plant has started to put out some new growth. So we have this leaf here, which is a brand new leaf, a little bit misshapen. I don't want to touch it too much. It's still very soft, still hardening. And this leaf over here on a separate stem, that again is still hardening off. And this one at the top, nearly forgot about it as well. So this plant grew a long tendril and one leaf. Considering that this plant was so well rooted, that it's got good light, good access to light, I find that it's been quite slow. And in fact, a lot of the leaves are just not looking that great. I'm a little bit nervous about this one, but we'll see what happens. Whoops, nearly hit myself in the face. I haven't really checked the root system, so let's see what's going on there. I can see just a little bit of roots. I can only see just the tiniest amount of roots. So there's one root here where my finger is, another one here, and a little one over there. So only about 3 roots coming out of this pot. I would have thought that it would have done a lot more, especially when this plant was growing well. Before it started to decline, this was a very vigorous grower. So I thought it would just sort of carry on where it left off, but it hasn't done so far. But we'll keep an eye on it. We'll keep it on light. I know these Hoyas tend to like a lot of light, and we'll see what happens. Hopefully it sort of stabilizes before the winter comes around again. Hopefully it doesn't sort of go downhill. So we'll keep an eye on it and see what happens. The Hoya Sonya, the Hoya Latifolia, when I repotted it, I was probably the least confident in that plant because although up until its decline, that plant was just a beast. It was just growing leaf after leaf, was really solid. It just started to really, like, almost overnight just go downhill. And I'd lost quite a few of the leaves, and even the leaves that I tried to propagate, they weren't looking their best. So I didn't think anything much of this plant. I thought it would just be a failed attempt. However, I'm glad to report that it's actually doing okay. This is the Latifolia that I have worked so hard to save. I think when I potted it up, I think it only had 2 leaves on it. I think this one and another, which has since fallen off. And now we have 2 other leaves to celebrate. It's looking really, really good. When this plant started to bounce back and started to gain some vigor, you can see lots of roots at the bottom there. It grew these leaves in very quick succession. I had it growing in my grow tent and I thought, okay, I'm going to take it out because yeah, I just want it to have the space to grow and elongate. But since I've taken it out and put it into just ambient humidity, it's actually slowing down. It hasn't grown anything else. It's just taken a little bit of a break. So maybe I think it's just acclimating to the new humidity levels. Whereas in my grow tent, humidity levels are like 60%, 70%. It can go up, it can go a little bit down. It's consistently high. However, when I have this one, I've got this one growing in my room, east facing window, lower humidity, maybe around 40%, 50%, depending on what's happening. It's going to take the plant a while to sort of adjust to that. So we'll see what happens. Hopefully bounce back quite soon. But I'm just so glad that I haven't lost it completely. I was speaking to a planty friend about this and I said, yep, it's really, really good. I've actually given her a cutting of a Latifolia. Her one's doing well. I was proud to tell her that mine is also bouncing back. So I don't know if you've seen this, but hopefully this video she can see how far it's come. So this is it, the Hoya Latifolia. So there we have it. I think all in all it's been quite successful. Some I'm still keeping an eye on and seeing where we go with it. Others I'm quite confident with them, like the Velosa. But yeah, this is it. This is where we are. I'll keep you updated on these plants and many others. Do let me know in the comments below if you're also struggling with any Hoya. Maybe we can learn from each other and from this community. But that's all for today. Thank you so much for watching, and as always, keep planting.